1730 hours on April 4th, 2004, Sadr city of Baghdad, Iraq.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
1st Platoon, Charlie 25 Cav, was escorting a sewage truck in the southern part of the city.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
1755 hours as the sun began to set.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
3 large groups of men scattered to the north as the patrol approached.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
Everyone in the patrol began to scan their sectors.
Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah.
The city of over 2 million people grew eerily quiet. And then,
Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah.
what started as sporadic gunfire quickly became overwhelming from all directions. Enemy forces across the city called to arms by the echoing calls of prayer, bouncing from one minaret to the next. This sparked a chain reaction that threw the 1st Brigade Combat Team, 1st Cav Division, headlong into the battle we now call Black Sunday. I am your host, Eddie Lazary, and on this series of episodes, I will be talking to the troops who were there and their families. We will be following and discussing The Long Road Home, a 7-part miniseries in the National Geographic Channel. If you or someone you know served during the Battle of Sadr City, I want to talk to you. Join us over to our closed Facebook group 04-04-04. Now let's meet our next guest.
So, yeah, I have to have somebody there with me because this actually happened right after I started reading that book.
So you're kind of afraid that watching the series would kind of bring you back to some of that again?
Yeah, in some aspects. I'm not as stressed out as I was back then. I just got back from NTC. I had some marital issues. Bills were piling up, and I realized what was going on. So I was trying to seek help, but I was already too far gone. There was no coming back from it. I don't even think if I had seen a psychologist at that point that it would have helped that much. I mean, it could have. I'm not going to put it down. Actually, thinking back on it, hindsight, yeah, it probably would have, because I had a great psychologist and a counselor, and learned quite a bit on some coping skills and stuff to get through issues like that.
This is James Vanni, then Specialist Vanni. He was part of Bravo 25 Cav. So you still seeing somebody?
I go to school from 7 to 12. From 12:30 to 9, I'm usually at work. So right now, no. When I get done with school, which is in May, yes, I will be back and seeking and furthering my to better myself in a way that's more, I guess, peaceful. I mean, I don't like feeling like this. And it took me a long time to realize that I was actually going through and what I was going through.
Yeah. So how are you? How are you now with sharing your story from that time in Baghdad on April 4th?
I'm all right.
You okay? You wanna kind of talk about that day a little bit?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. I mean, if you feel, I don't want to, pressure you or anything like that. If we get into any sensitive topics or areas, man, just let me know. It's all good. Yeah, I was there. I was there too, man. So I know what it was about. And it's tough. It was a tough, not just that day. But that was the start of a long, long year for us.
And the funny thing is a lot of it. I remember highlights, but most of that year was just as the years go by, was a blur.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that I remember was April 4th, but from April 6th or 7th, it just became one big blur. I have a hard time remembering times, places, cities. I don't know. Maybe it was due to explosions or just too many head injuries. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But April 4th is the one day that a lot of us just don't seem to forget.
Yeah, that's for sure. So what unit? What was your rank? What was your job? And what unit were you in back then?
I was in 2-5, and I'm pretty sure it was Bravo Company. I've been in a lot of units, so it was with. I remember my CO was Captain Pollock. We had gotten over there, and they had assigned me to be part of the ING cadre.
ING. This stands for Iraqi National Guard. Part of our mission over there at the time was to train Iraqis to fill the ranks of their dismantled police and military forces. We became their trainers, drill sergeants, so to speak. But instead of training in peacetime to prepare for war, we were training them real time, smack dab in the middle of it.
And it was that morning we were out PMCSing the LMTVs for the ING when I heard an E6 yelling at his squad about the gunfight. And I hadn't even heard anything about it at that point. And so I was around at the time I was an E4P. I don't think I got promoted until the next month. And at the time I told my soldiers that were around me, I was like, hold up, be quiet. And that was the first time I heard the gunfire. Of course, we all heard it at some point or another over there, but it was just like this. It sounded like an all-out fight for their lives. I think it was probably about 30 to 40 minutes later that we started getting the vehicles rolling in with wounded. Maybe it was an hour. And they dropped them off at the front gate so that they could turn around and go back out and get more people. So we were having to carry all those litters from that front gate to the aid station. And I remember the first guy, and I don't remember any of the medics or even the first guy that was on the ground. I remember he had one of those green band army watches that everybody got while they're in basic training. Mm-hmm. It wasn't digital. It was just analog. And we were sitting there, of course we were trying to work on this guy. He had, I don't know, a bunch of bullet holes in him. Every time we pumped to try to resuscitate him, we found another bullet hole. We patch it up and then go back to trying to resuscitate him. I think they patched up like 6 or 7 holes in him before Doc came by. Just said he was he was gone. So we picked him up and took him into the aid station, and the old what turned out to be the PA's room. We walked in, we walked to the left, and then that room had a little broom closet, and we set that guy down. And the last thing I remember was his watch clicking on the ground. His hand fell off the litter. And even to this day, I still have nightmares about that. I don't know what bothers me so much about it. I don't think I actually got into the gunfight until I want to say it was 11:30 at night.
Mm-hmm.
They pulled all the ING cadre back, or at least I asked to be pulled back, and I was in the back of the XO's vehicle with a scout. It was an E5, I remember, because he outranked me, and he had a M240 Bravo with a I don't know, he probably had about 150 rounds just hanging off the side. And I told him that he needed to break that off and give it to his ammo guy. He had some other guy, I think it was a PFC. And I told him you only need that for a starter. And then once you get on the ground and get set up, that's when he attaches the next belt. To him, that sounded like news. And I was really worried about him following me out there, pulling any type of security, because he seemed lost at the time. I think we ended up rolling out probably about 11:45 out the gate, because I know the medevac helicopters had come in. They'd been coming in for hours at that point. And it was already dark. So we rolled out to recover the 2 Humvees that had been disabled at that point. And I don't even remember the ride out there. I don't remember how long it took. I don't remember. I just remember it was like the ramp was up because we were in a Bradley. And then the ramp was down. I was being told to pull some type of security for the recovery team as they were sending women into the alleyway to kind of spot where the Bradleys were. And we knew they were spotting because as soon as they disappeared on the other side of the alleyway, we'd hear some yelling, and then we'd hear some gunfire pointed towards us. And the recovery crew, I remember Staff Sergeant Staves, well, actually at the time it was Sergeant Staves, was up on the vehicle. I think he was trying to pull sensitive equipment out of the vehicle itself, and an RPG hit the vehicle. Somebody yelled out RPG, and he jumped off the vehicle just as it hit the vehicle. And then it kind of gets a blur there. I don't remember if I remember we actually had it hooked up, but the next thing I remember is being in the Bradley. Somebody over the intercom yelled out RPG, 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 and it hit like right underneath our vehicle in the rear as we were pulling the Humvee out. And then we went to the couple hundred meters outside of the city, and shit, I don't even remember what we did there. I know we stopped. I think we unhooked the broken Humvee and started assessing the damage on that Humvee and the LMTV that had already been pulled out. That's about what I remember from my aspect.
It's amazing how in the middle of all that, time does some weird shit, doesn't it? Sometimes, time almost stands still where everything seems to go in slow motion. And then sometimes, hours can flash by in what seems like seconds. It's really, really weird how time means something different when bullets start flying and shit starts happening and adrenaline starts pumping. It's just crazy. It's just one of those things that you can't really describe or try to explain to anybody. It's one of those things like you gotta experience it to really fully understand, right?
Well, they always say time flies when you're having fun, but
right, yeah.
I don't think that was too much. I mean, I always joked around about it, because that was the first night I ever got shot at by an AK-47, and the first thing that went into my mind was Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood.
Mm-hmm.
And he says AK-47s, when they're fired at you, have a very distinctive sound. Well, from experience, yes, they do have a very distinctive sound.
Mm-hmm.
But in all actuality, I think a lot of us lost a piece of ourselves that day. Just, everybody sits there and sees everything on the news and, hears about it. But until you're in the whole mix of it, you lose a piece of yourself. That innocence, I guess you could say, the not knowing what it's really like.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I just remember thinking that when bullets first started, I mean, you could hear gunfire in the city in the background all around, but when you hear that whizzing sound of a bullet passing or that cracking sound of a bullet passing, and you realize that moment that holy fuck, they're fucking trying to. They're like, there's actual human beings right now trying to kill me. Right? That thought came into my mind, and I was just completely like, it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, the bullets were flying and people were shooting, but when bullets started coming my direction, specifically at my truck, at me, it was surreal, man. You're right. It was this. I just couldn't believe it. I don't know why I didn't believe it. I mean, Jesus, what were we there for, right?
The whole time, the mission that we were supposed to do over there, and I think the movie nailed it, was that it was supposed to be peaceful, and we were going over there to help people and to liberate them and help them become a better society. And the fact that these people were trying to not only take the father and the husband from a family, but to stop all these other people from getting the help that, they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I took it too personally that day. I mean, keeping in mind that it was OIF2 and that a lot of people just were unsure of what we were doing over there. But it wasn't until about month 3, month 4, when I had an RPG almost blow up my vehicle, that I took it personal. I took it to a point where I probably shouldn't have. The fact that we didn't treat them like Third ID when we were doing the right seat rides with them, and the ING did their right seat rides and left seat rides with the outgoing unit. And I see these posts on Facebook saying that they didn't, but we did it. And we had an E7 out there with us who literally yelled at this Iraqi and like kicked the door on his leg. And I'm like, this is not why we're here. We're here to try to help these people.
Right.
And when month 4 took place and that RPG almost blew up my vehicle, I was like, okay, I can associate with what that E7 was talking about, but at the same point, we're here to help. And at the same point, I looked at it. I didn't look at it as a job. I looked at it as an American citizen who had joined the military to defend the United States, coming over to a foreign country, their land, and to help them out. We weren't there to, blow people up and freaking take lives. We were supposed to be there to help, restore water, electricity, get a sewage plant going, all that good stuff, supply jobs, make buildings, create a military for them. And it was like, well, now Saddam's out of the picture. We don't want that. And we want whatever we had, or whatever the case may be, why they were fighting us. But I really, I just didn't understand why.
And I remember we convoyed up from Kuwait, right? And it took us like 3 days to get from Kuwait all the way up to Baghdad. We stopped at Navistar, a couple of different stops along the way. One, because you just you're traveling in a couple hundred vehicle convoy, you can't go that fast, and there's vehicles breaking down, and you know the deal, right? So it took us about 3 days, and there was some pretty desolate country that we drove through on the way up, and there was it seemed like it was almost like Mars. It looked like the landscape was all like red, and I don't know if it was minerals or if it was trash or what it was. It was just looked weird, just a strange place, like you're on a totally different planet. And all of a sudden, we didn't see nothing for miles, and all of a sudden there's kids playing in the mud as we drive by, and then we don't see anything for another 50 miles. I have no idea where the hell those kids came from, what they were doing there. But I just remember seeing the look on their face, and I just felt sorry for them. Right? I felt heartbroken. I was like, man, I at that moment I was like, I know why I'm here. I'm here to make a difference and care for the people, and give them a sense of freedom that they've never really experienced in forever. And I mean, I was a man on a mission, right? And then we get up there, and all this shit starts to go down, and we're just there trying to help, man. We were just there trying to help. We weren't trying to hurt anybody. We weren't trying to overthrow anything. We were just there to help, and it just felt like a huge slap in the face. And as the year progressed, and there's a few times my section was shot at, small arms fires, RPGs, and got hit with a ton of IEDs, and a lot of the people that were firing on us were these same kids, about the same age as the ones that we saw driving up. And I just remember feeling really callous towards helping. On my way there, I was very optimistic and felt like, I had a mission and I was going to do good. And on my way home,
I grew angry.
Yeah, on my way home, I remember thinking, I don't give a fuck about these people. I could care less. If they want to live in their own shit and, die hungry and jobless, and I didn't care. I was just glad to be out of that country. And I got home and I struggled with that feeling, right? It's the feelings that we like you said, we were robbed of our innocence. We learned what human beings were capable of doing to other human beings. And just it's a different place to be. And it bothered me that I didn't give a shit about them anymore, because it says not about it wasn't because it's them, but it says something about me. You know what I mean?
Yep. I mean, how long were you in?
I was in 10 years, but once we redeployed, I was in from 96 to 2005. So once we redeployed, I got out.
So we spent all that time beforehand before we deployed, we trained.
Yeah.
I mean, day in, day out, 30 days in the field, 6 months in the field, freaking, it was, critiques. And then we go back out and do it. And, and there's one high five to Colonel Valesky for the training that he had. He prepared us for the worst. Hope for the best, but he trained us for the worst. I think if we had gone over there any less trained, we totally would have been fucked.
Mm-hmm.
But in that aspect, as an infantry soldier, we just wanted to do our job.
Right.
You get helicopter pilots and mechanics who train and do their job on a daily basis, or Bradley mechanics and turret mechanics who do their job on a daily basis. And then you get the infantry who train to do their job for so long and then get the opportunity. It doesn't prepare you.
Mm-hmm.
The muscle memory kicks in, you bring the weapon up, you squeeze the trigger, and the round comes out the barrel and hits its target. But to actually take a person's life in defense of yours, it really changes the way you look at life itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I, telling you that, I shouldn't, you already know.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt the same way as I was leaving. I was like, and even today I see, of course I work in retail at a gas station just to make ends meet while I'm here at school. But the fact is that I see all these people come in without a care in the world, and they just don't realize what they're actually capable of doing, what a person is capable of doing to another person. They don't care about anybody else. If their life is that unhappy where they can pick up a weapon and pull the trigger, I know from experience they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they do, there's another story. So in all other aspects of being around other people, I struggle on a daily basis because I just don't give a shit about anybody else.
Right.
Just because of that one day, actually.
Yeah.
It only took one day to come to that realization.
So what is it about that day that you struggle with? Everyone that's been there has something about that time in Iraq, whether it be April 4th or sometime after. Sometime during that year, there's always a handful of things that we kind of keep tucked away in a neat little pocket inside ourselves, and sometimes we let it out, and sometimes we don't, and sometimes we should, and sometimes we shouldn't, and it manifests in certain ways, and they're the things that we deal with, right? I have mine. I know you have yours. Everyone that's ever served probably does to some degree. And I'm a firm believer that sharing those with our brothers and sisters that have been there, that have seen it, that have lived it, that have felt it, is important for our ability to not recover, not move on, but maybe in some way come to terms with it, right?
Anybody who served on War Eagle that year, whether they want to admit it or not, I don't think any of them have come to the conclusion that they finished the job that they were sent to do. It's like that one little piece that you didn't accomplish. We finished the mission that we ultimately, no, I can't even say that. I just felt like it was left unfinished. I felt like we could have done if we had more time. The one thing that bothers me that has always kind of stuck with me is that watch hitting the ground. Like, we didn't do enough for that guy. whether or not he had 100 bullet holes in him or one. It's causes nightmares, and it's when that watch hit the ground. Today, anything that sounds similar, I go into a depressive state. I don't even remember the guy's name. I don't. He was that bloodied up. But the fact that I felt we could have done more if we had the supplies or exhausted all means necessary. That's the one piece that always hits me. Not the fact that I've had RPGs or IEDs go off around me or at me or whatever, just that watch hitting the ground.
It's weird how little things like that. I mean, we say little things, but they're everything to us, right? Those little things to other people are everything to us. It's little things that pop into my mind. Smells, certain smells, different sounds. The little things that I kind of hold on to. That my little watches, right? Those are the hardest to let go, and there's always this. Could we have done more? Could I have done more? Did I do enough? And those questions that run through my mind all the time, and I know I'll never know the answer. And it's not really the answer that I'm seeking. It's wondering if I'm ever going to be able to let that go. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
And I think creating the group 444 and this mini series, and if nothing else, it creates an opportunity for guys like me to talk to guys like you, and for guys like you to talk to other guys like us, and I think in some ways that's kind of the best we can do is tell our stories, share our feelings, and it's not easy, man. It takes a lot of courage to tell your story, you know.
Part of the reason why I read the book back in 2014 was I wanted to close that chapter in my life. I wanted to feel again. You know, for so long, I'm not giving a shit. I don't give a fuck about anybody else. It was starting to irritate me. I didn't have the best childhood, but I was always happy, and I didn't like to see any other people down. But after that deployment, it was I just don't give a fuck. But I read that book, and I was hoping, I guess in a sense it mattered, that I had come to the conclusion that we did the best we could with what we had, and that we did finish the job that we were sent there to do. And upon reading that book, I didn't feel it. So I felt that there was much more that not only I could have done, but other people that would have probably satisfied that urge. And maybe it's not like that. Maybe there is just no fixing that feeling. Maybe, we explained it to the best of our ability that we were there to help, and they didn't want the help. I don't know, but that's what I think my ultimate goal was when I started reading the book.
Do you think this series might bring some closure that the book didn't?
I don't know, but that's why I'm going to try to find somebody I truly trust. Mm-hmm. Somebody who can snap me back in reality. The one thing that I've always that My ex-wife used to tell me that she understood and that I can't remember the words that she used. And the fact is that I had told her and warned her and explained to her and brought all these other issues up about my mental state at the time. And I've gathered that nobody truly understands unless you've been there, and it's not just Black Sunday. It's any type of combat situation where either you took somebody's life or somebody tried to take yours. And it's hard to fathom the thought process that somebody could relate and understand what you feel or how you're feeling or your mental stability when you survived something like that. But I've just come to the conclusion that, all these people talk out their ass about, I understand, I want to be here for you. I want to listen to your problems. But in all actuality, it's like people go through the mix of trying to comfort you and you see right through it.
And I think in a lot of ways, it's because we're not seeking comfort, right? When we want to talk or when we feel the need to talk or we finally open up and choose to talk, it's not pity. It's not comfort necessarily that we're looking for. It's just sometimes we just need to just share our experiences with no expectation of anything from the other side. You know what I mean? And it's weird because people that don't get it, that weren't never there, they want to listen, but they feel the need. They almost feel like they need to console in some way, right? And I think that's just human nature. I think people like that, they recognize that you're sharing something meaningful and emotional, and that carries a lot of meaning within yourself, right? And so they feel that to listen to that story without offering up some sort of peace offering in some way, that they would be doing you a disservice. And sometimes I get into those conversations with people and I say, I just want to tell you a story, and I don't want you to say anything when I get to the end. And it's hard for people. It's easier to talk with guys that have been there because I've been in many conversations with buddies of mine, and they tell a story, and I don't give them any consultation. I don't give them any sympathy or console them at the end, because I know that's not what they need. That's not what they're looking for. They just wanted to tell a story about a buddy that they lost, or tell a story about a soldier or a commander or an NCO of theirs that was wounded or killed, or they want to tell a story about the humanity that innocence that you talked about at the beginning being stolen, and that no matter how much time passes, that's something that you and I and those that were there will always know the realities of humanity and how. It's just I remember when I first came back and I got out of the military, I was just an angry individual, because I would hear people complain and bitch and cry about the littlest thing, right? My coffee wasn't hot enough when I got it at Dunkin' Donuts, or, the ride to work, somebody was, driving like an asshole, or, driving up my ass. And people, I got so irritated listening to people bitch and complain about things that ultimately just didn't matter at the end of the day, right? Because I knew that there was things in this world that was happening and going on, and you can watch all the news you want to, you could watch all the war movies you want to, but none of that will ever prepare you for the realities of
the experience.
Yeah, and the humanity that is, right?
That's why I don't watch the news.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either, man.
I mean, and I can't remember his name. There was a captain in the engineer battalion, 20th.
Yeah, you got hit by that IED.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my favorite captain. I mean, just up and down every mission that being in the ING, we always rolled out with 3 or 4 people,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what we had available to their platoon. But it was always better to be with your brothers,
Mm-hmm.
whether they be engineers or they were tankers or whatever the case may be. It was always to be better to roll out and offer the support and the help to fellow American soldiers, brothers or sisters, than it was to roll out with the ING.
Mm-hmm.
Not only was there, the language barrier, but they still just were not prepared to be doing all those missions on their own. And that company commander, every time he had a mission, he'd always track me down and ask me if I wanted to roll with him. And I was, there were times where I had found IEDs in a house on an ING mission that he was attached to, blew the house up because they weren't going to move these 2 cinder blocks with 2 155 rounds in them. So there was 4 155 rounds. So EOD just blew the house up in place. Yeah, pretty funny. But ever since I had found those IEDs, he always made sure that I was out on missions with him looking for the extra shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because as well prepared as the engineers were, it was always good to have somebody with the mentality of scanning and shooting than it was to just lay C4 or blow something up. I think. But I was I take my mid-tour leave when he got blown up, and I came back to find out that he had blown up, and to have a commander get out of his vehicle, walk around the vehicle, check on all his soldiers when he was so fatally wounded shows mounds and mounds of what a true leader was. And to this day, in every battalion or brigade or whatever the case may be, I think 2-5 had the best of the best. I've only run across one other commander that I probably follow to hell and back without asking a question. And I truly believe that if we found a portal to hell and one of those battalion commanders, if Colonel or General Valesky now had asked me, hey, we need to go down here and take care of this, I wouldn't even ask why. That's the leadership that I feel that I had while I was in 2-5.
Mm-hmm. And I hear that a lot from everybody that served that deployment. And especially from people that have done multiple deployments. Like I did one and done, right? I did OIF2 and then I got out. But a lot of guys I know and that I served with, they did OIF2, then they got redeployed and did, back-to-back deployments, multiple Afghanistan, multiple Iraq. And I always ask them, so what's the one deployment, the one unit that really stands out in your mind the most? And every one of them always comes back to that first one, the OIF2, with the 1st Brigade Combat Team, and they all say the same thing, right? And I asked the question, like, what is it about that time, that unit, that deployment that made it so much more special than all the other ones? And a lot of people just say it was the camaraderie and the bond that was built, and perhaps it was because, and I think you alluded to it earlier on, we did a lot of training leading up to this, right? We did multiple field training exercises, NTC rotations. I mean, we spent a good amount of time, in most cases, a couple of years with these guys before we hit the big sandbox, right? And maybe that's part of it, because after that, everybody just kind of went 3 sheets to the wind, and everybody was going to new units, and people that were at the units, they were leaving to go to new units, and it was just a fast pace, in and out, and I just don't know if units ever had the ability to kind of regain some of that bond that's built by being with the same people for that many years. What's your thoughts?
I think training played a big part in it. I think the fact that it was the beginning of the war, we had prep time, and we prepped. And as the war continued on, or conflict, or whatever you want to call it, the camaraderie was lost amongst other units. And the reason why I say that is because people were leaving and going to other units, and they would get there, they would train up, and then leave. Mm-hmm. They didn't have that time to get to know the people they were working with, or what they were about, or families, or whatever the case may be. It was more of a, like you said, just a quick into the unit, deploy, come back, and then go. As for OIF 3 or 4, when 2.5, that I think they turned into 1.8, or whatever unit they turned into, 1.9, whatever. They had all new soldiers because a lot of us left. A lot of us got orders. I went to Lewis. The unit I was with up there deployed to Iraq as well, but I ended up getting left behind for a different type of mission. And then, but even then, how well did you really know a person in a year or even 6 months? So you didn't have that ability to build that camaraderie as much as we did in 2.5.
They say it in the show, and it's even in the book, and of course being on the ground there, and it never really dawned on me until somebody was watching the series, kind of reached out to me and was like, "What's up with the shoot him in the face bit?"
Oh, I fucking love that motto. I still use that motto today.
I do too, and I just kind of chuckled because like one of those questions that you get asked randomly, and it's just like. It's like, how do you even explain that, right? But so where did that come from? Was that a Colonel Valesky thing? Was that
that was a Colonel Valesky thing?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I can't say it was exactly him because I don't know, but what I can say was that we were out in a formation one day. It was a battalion held formation, and he came across with, "We are no longer the Black Knights," or our motto is no longer the Black Knights, it is shoot him in the face. So whether or not if that actually came from him or if that came from somebody in his office and he just overheard it and said, "Fuck yeah, we're doing that," I don't know. But I will say that it took like a brush fire. Everybody was fucking motivated to go over there and help these people. But Colonel Valesky made sure that we had a contingency plan in place, that if shit got hot, he knew that we could handle ourselves. And I don't think there's a soldier out there who doesn't thank him for that.
The mission was peace, but we trained for war, right?
Yep.
Every time I get a chance to talk with someone who served over there, it doesn't take long before a crazy-ass story emerges.
I was crazy, but, there was a time where we were going down Route Silver, and, Silver was fucking notorious. Silver and arrows. Mm-hmm. Notorious. We were always going to get hit. It didn't matter what time of day or night it was. Yep. It was me, a PFC, and a staff sergeant. At that time, I was an E5. At that time, I'd given up. I had already got my I don't give a fuck attitude. I had 2 platoons of ING behind me in those big old bongo trucks, and I had 2 rounds whiz by my head, and all I could do was turn that 240 that was on the back of that Humvee that we had, no armor, and I unloaded all 800 rounds that were attached to it. And then they sent out the QRF. ING had dispensed both of their 2-round magazines that they were allotted within 30 seconds. So, yeah, I got a lot of memories over there. Some not so fond, some that aren't, and a lot that have escaped me. Mm-hmm. People, names, times. I don't remember a lot of them, but I really appreciate you doing the interview. I know it's not as glorified as, somebody who stayed out all 48 hours, for the first 48, but that's my 2 cents.
We all had a mission. We all had a part to play that night, man. And like you said, none of us knew it was coming. We weren't, we were prepared from it from a training standpoint, but we weren't prepared from it from oh fuck, this shit just got real, right? And I think everybody just went into reaction mode. Nobody really. I never found anyone standing around saying, "What do I do?" Right? I don't ever remember anyone standing there looking confused about what to do. They just found a way to help any way they could, whether it was running casualties from the front gate back to whatever. I remember my section at one point we circled our vehicles around and turned our headlights on so they could see what was going on out on the ground outside the aid station. When we first rolled into Eagle, the first thing I remember is it was before the sun went down. It was dusk, and I just remember somebody running out of the aid station towards my truck, and I got out, and I don't remember who it was, what they did, what their role was, but they just said, "Do you have any combat lifesaver bags?" And I was like, "Yeah, we do. Each truck has a couple." And they said, "Could you please give them up? We've run out of medical supplies." So I rounded up all of my sector, my squad's CLS bags, and gave them over. And it wasn't until we left to take our first group of casualties from War Eagle down to Cuervo, it dawned on me that I had just given up my entire section's CLS bags. and I'm like, fuck, what if we get hit? We've got nothing. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. There was our brothers and sisters needed them when they needed them, and we had them and we gave them.
That's where I was coming back with the supplies they needed. Yeah, they were freaking low on everything.
Yeah, man. So yeah, we all pulled together, man. We were all one team that night. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter.
I'm telling you right now, believe it or not, my 16 years, 9 months, how many ever fucking days. Yeah, that was the only fucking night in my entire military career that nobody was standing around saying, well, what the fuck do I need to do now? Mm-hmm. Everybody was volunteering to go out and help, or somebody was back there fucking getting a vehicle ready to roll out, or people were on standby to roll out, or people were at the aid station helping out their buddies. Mm-hmm. Not one single person on that entire fucking FOB had nothing to do, and they knew it.
Right.
And they did it.
Yep. All the way down to the guys standing guard on the towers, to the guys standing out at the gate, to the guys manning the talks. I got one guy that hit me up. He's like, "Hey, man, I want to come on your show and talk about my experience." He goes, "But I didn't roll outside the FOB. I wasn't part of any of the rescue missions. I just manned the radios and the talk." I'm like, dude, that's huge.
You're the most informative.
That's a huge. I mean, dude, no role was a lesser role that day. Every role that everybody played was a needed role.
Everybody puts that talk guy to shame until the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, man.
What happens? What happens when that guy wasn't there?
That's right.
Okay, well, I got to get back to getting some stuff done before I go to
Yeah,
bed.
man.
So
Thanks for.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I know you're busy, and shoot him in the face, brother.
Shoot him in the face.